Now, PR is a little bit like branding. Everyone's got their own definition of what it is, what it isn't. And today we're joined by somebody who has been living and breathing PR and everything that's related to it for over 15 years. Katie Martel is this week's guest, and I'm super excited to get all the nitty and gritty on what PR is, how we can leverage it, and everything in between. Katie, thanks so much for being here.
Hello, beautiful Petra. It's so lovely to be here and hear all your listeners and share the amazing world of PR, because it has, I think, where PR people have not given PR the best reputation, which is ironic, I guess, because PR is all about enhancing reputation. So can't wait to be here and dispel all those myths and bust some myths on PR.
Yes.
So
it's funny you get straight into it, because I thought I'll tiptoe a little bit around that PR often gets a bad rep for all the wrong reasons. And you got straight into it. I love it.
Yeah,
now,
100%.
Give us a definition. What is PR, and what are maybe also some lesser known forms of PR?
Awesome. Yeah. So PR, I actually taught at QUT as a I guess, what do you call it, tutor for many years. And I guess this sort of theoretical definition is all about building mutually beneficial relationships with your key stakeholders to enhance your reputation as a business owner or an entity or a personal brand, as well as those of your entire community, that whether that's customers, key influencers or leaders, which is, in the new world of social media, influencers is a big thing now. To media as well, and a whole bunch of different things, government, all those sorts of things. So it's all about giving mutually supportive ways to work together for the better of your company. That's a very, technical definition of PR, but from a lot of, a general Joe of what PR is known for. But basically, it's always been about, well, people think it's all about media, but that's really just publicity. That's one facet of PR as part of a whole broader range of what PR can really entail, which is a lot of it is about communicating with your community in a really mutually beneficial way. There you go. That's the definition, Petra.
I love it.
How did I
go? Very good. I love it. Because, what we've also seen is that PR was usually just for either the high net worth individuals or the big companies and the brands. But now with the rise of technology and social media platforms, we've kind of democratized information and the whole who can actually get public exposure.
Publicity,
what kind of changes have you seen over the last maybe 2 years, especially after COVID-19 hit, in your world?
Well, I can talk from my personal experience as a PR consultant, I guess. Absolutely. I worked for 15 years or so. It's probably even more than that now in PR. And I worked in big agencies where a lot of our clients were only sort of, McDonald's, Mission Australia, a lot of those big entities, and the people that represented them. I mean, we did do localized PR, I guess, back then as well. But they had the big budgets to spend a lot on doing some very cool publicity stunts, very cool sponsorships, thought leadership sort of pieces. But now it is absolutely something that I teach to everybody and share to everyone, that PR is something that anyone can do, including my own self. So I was someone that did not like, I was very much more comfortable behind the camera, coaching my clients in being in front of the camera. And I absolutely am terrified of being in front of the camera or speaking to an audience or anything like that. But I guess from my own starting my own business, I kind of realized I needed to put myself forward as a for my own PR and do my own PR to grow my business, because I knew it is an incredibly powerful resource for building up your reputation, as we've said, being seen as a thought leader or an opinion expert on your field of expertise. So there was lots of different benefits for doing PR from that, awareness, mass awareness, building of that trust, to, obviously leading to conversions as being that part of that whole of marketing funnel. So I started to put myself forward in very simple ways, and it's just through lots of different things which we can go into from how it can really be. So I've been featured in Inside Small Business, Smart Company, lots of different publications where my target audience lie, or women's media, because I do have a passion for working with female focused brands as well. But yeah, and then I've worked with lots of other small, one-man band startup businesses who have, I guess, gone, through the roof in terms of generating publicity for their brand and growing their brand and leading to a direct link to sales. So I can give you one example of one of our clients. It's Lula Eye Mask. It's started by two women founders who they're sisters, but they do have a really beautiful, powerful story. So Aisling and Margaret are Brisbane girls that sisters. They started their brand, or decided they want to launch their brand for eye masks that help give mums and women the space to relax. It's just a tool to have 20 minutes to have some mindful warming mask on their eyes and get that space to relax. But actually at the time they decided to launch their business, both of them within 6 weeks apart got cancer, breast cancer. And they have a really amazing story, both single mums as well. So they have a really beautiful, empowering story. And I guess the motivation behind their brand became even more powerful with their eye mask giving them the space, because they were literally forced off their feet during their cancer treatment and recovery process. They needed to rest. And so I guess people really resonated with that. Well, their belief in their brand became even more so. And that's really come through in all of their PR, sharing their story about their mission, their purpose. And I guess that comes back to what I do, or our mission as Croft, as an agency, Croft PR, our mission is to work with brands. So using PR with purpose. So brands who have a really clear purpose for empowering their communities with whatever way that might be, that inspires and builds up for a more positive impact in their communities around them. So yeah, and so since we've started to share their story, they've been featured on Sunrise, Channel 9, Today Show, Q Weekend, lots of different publications in Australia here that are sort of top tier publications. And every single time they get a news story, their sales go absolutely through the roof. So that's been a beautiful client and a great example of just two women start up in business. They've had their business for less than a year and kicking goals through the roof. So it's been amazing.
Oh, I love the story and the example. So thanks so much for sharing. And, from what I can hear, PR is for everyone. It doesn't need to be for the big budgets anymore, for the big brands. It can be startup founders and small businesses to leverage the power of external media and their audiences. Now, in this case, it's a very powerful story, obviously. But if we work with somebody who's just exited the workforce, for example, want to set up their own consultancy, and they say, well, I haven't climbed Mount Everest, I haven't had cancer, don't have the big story. Am I still interesting enough for PR? What can I do to get there? What would your answer be?
Absolutely. So I guess everybody has a story. And there are some key pillars of what makes a really good story. And a lot of it is knowing these key pillars. So one of might be having a story that has impact. So something that that is going to impact or benefit or be of importance to a lot of people. So say you are someone who's just exited the workforce. I'm sure you have learnt an absolute wealth of experience in your field of expertise. And it's all about positioning you as the expert in that area. So say if we come back to the concept of impact, and you might be a scientist in some sort of field of expertise. What is really important with media is having something that's topical and newsworthy, and that's going to be, relevant right now. So if you can, stay on top of what is happening in your trends and area of interest that you're saying you're going to set up a consultancy in XYZ, if you can stay across the trends and topics that are of conversations that are going on in your field, and if you can write or share a piece that might be a thought or a concept that might be off the back of this topical piece, the faster you jump on that story, the faster you jump on being the first to respond to that topic or interest. And if you are, staying across the media channels that are relevant to you. So if you're thinking, your local trade publication, and what we mean by trade is it's kind of a PR term of just being your field of expertise. So say for small business, inside small business, you might be writing a piece about why businesses need to stay across or be aware of these sorts of issues and doing something around that. And the best way to do that, is writing your piece. But you may not write it all, but if you want to, you could say, pitch it into the editor of say Inside Small Business Publications. So introduce yourself and say, I'm I've worked in the field for this many years. I might have won this many awards, or my personal experience on working for this client or having gone through this experience. I'd love to share my experience on XYZ issue. If you've written the story, that's great. And even if it doesn't run or the editor isn't of interest to you, sorry, can you hear Ella barking in the background? That's my lovely Labrador. Oh my gosh, she's a nightmare. Either way, that content is going to be relevant for you for somebody else. So I do suggest having a crack at writing a blog or an article. But the best way to know if or have a higher chance of getting that story run in said publication is to know that publication, to research what's already been written, to see what others are writing on these trends, and I guess adapt, not copy, never plagiarize, but tailor it to your voice, your experiences, and following that similar structure.
Excellent tips. And one of the principles of the trusted authority is being the translator. And you also said that recent trends, like there's no point talking about something that happened 2 years ago, was relevant 10 years ago in your industry. What is your take on what's happening right now and connect it to your professional industry or to the topic that you want to be known for? Love this topic. Yeah.
And I mean, like, there are circumstances where, say, the Me Too movements, where you've had situations, you might have had a story that is relevant that you haven't felt comfortable sharing 10 years ago that happened to you. But it's certainly happened. I mean, one of our clients, Kelly Social, who we worked with, she's Lauren Swindenberg, who is the founder of Swindenbank, who is the founder of that company. We wrote a piece about her experience, her, I guess, Me Too experience in the marketing industry around being a woman and having, challenges, facing sexism, facing really, difficult experiences in the world, in, her sphere. But what we did do that made it timely and more likely to be picked up from something that happened, say, 5 or 10 years ago for her. It actually happened immediately after Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins did a talk at the, I think, Press Club, maybe sometime this time last year. And they talked about, I guess, being silenced and being sick of being silenced in the industry. So I guess it was still timely from an issue that still happened 10 years ago, or an experience that still happened 10 years ago. So yeah, I guess you still do need to have something that's relevant to now. Don't need it, but it just is a much higher chance of getting run if it's relevant to right now.
Absolutely. Well, there are two aspects then. We can jump onto a current or recent topic that we have had experience in our past life and have overcome that, and or having our own take on what's happening right now, because it hasn't been discussed. Like, we've never had a pandemic before. How do we deal with layoffs? How do we reinvent our careers and so forth? So, I love those tips.
Absolutely. What sort of client, what client could you, if we could work through an example, has there been someone that that has, I guess, left their career or had something like that? What could be an example? We could work through an example now if you'd like to.
Who hasn't left recently?
I know, right?
Everyone is leaving left, right, and center.
Yeah, well, I guess that happened to me at the height of COVID. So at the height of COVID, I lost every single client. Pretty much every client went to a not lost, but yeah, every client went to an absolute standstill. So pretty much from day one of COVID, the rug was pulled under our feet. And another colleague of mine, Rachel Callan, who owns Full Stop Social Media Marketing, she and I banded together because we worked with a few clients together at the same time and decided to build this little community of women, people who had also been affected by COVID, which was pretty much the world, obviously. And we created this Facebook group of, like-minded audiences, and we started to share tips, inspiration, host weekly little events. And that actually led to, I guess, media coverage in its own right. We created off the back of this crisis, of which it was crisis at the time for a lot of people. So we ended up getting media coverage for this community group of only 200 business owners who are all, affected by COVID. But we actually all, in different ways, we donated our support to teachers who were still having to go to work. And so some of the business owners donated supplies to those teachers that still had to go and teach the students at that time. And we did little initiatives that were, I guess, good-spirited to support those around us. And it ended up leading to coverage in the Courier Mail, Sydney Morning, Daily Telegraph, and the Australian as well. So as a result of those those initiatives. So yeah, it is, in a way, when a crisis happens, it's actually a really it's a really good opportunity to talk about it with media, or with anyone really, because everybody has got a story of a crisis. Everyone's got a story of experiencing extreme vulnerability, and it is something that we really resonate, that those hardship stories, it's something that really does connect with people. So that is absolutely one key pillar that I talk about often in with any sort of working with any sort of client. It's really nice to share those hardship stories, that it's not all glowing, that people do want to know that it is hard. You have gone through something to get to where you are, or you are going through something to get to where you are. And that is something that's really going to connect, because that is at the end of the day, PR is all about connecting via stories. So connecting via means of relating to someone, and stories, those heartfelt connections are really, really powerful for for that.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned before, reach out to the editor, but let's say we've got this story, we've got this angle, we've got a really unique insight about a training topic. What are we actually doing next? Is there something that we have to have a speaker kit, or is it simply researching the editors? How do we do this?
Yeah, so great question, because it can feel overwhelming. So I guess one example is a client that I worked with, was called the owner of Fringe Hair. So she was a small Townsville hair salon owner up in Townsville, and she did an hour of power with me, which is just a one-on-one consultation, and we just nutted through. She had an idea that she wanted to cut her Saturday sessions for all her staff, because she was finding it impossible to find good staff and keep staff. So one initiative she came up with was to stop working Saturdays, which was her busiest day, make that sacrifice for her business, at the benefit of having great talent that clients will come to, because they know that they're going to get amazing service, and look after her team. So I was like, that's an amazing story. So all we did was literally typed into Google Townsville hairdressing. And the first story that popped up was a story 3 years ago from an ABC journalist, the ABC Townsville journalist, about the challenges of staffing in hairdressing. And literally through that process, we I helped her write a pitch to say, I'd love to write a story about, or share my story about stopping to work on my busiest days. And see it, because it's so impossible to find staff right now, and why I'm doing this to really help shake up the hairdressing industry, and give staff the amazing experience. And so we Googled, hit the article, clicked on the article, and usually the bio in many of the articles, the journalist's contact details are right there and there. If you hit, it's a hyperlink, often brings up their email address. Otherwise, you might need to do a bit more digging on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. All the journalists are available these days. The benefits of social media. You don't have to spend millions on a media database. It's just not necessary. And so we wrote a perfect pitch that shared, "Hi, XYZ. I know you wrote about this story a couple of years ago, and I wondered if you're interested in hearing an update on this from someone on the ground. I've run a business and it's still possible to find staff right now. And this is one thing I'm doing to change what's so tricky about being a small business hairdresser in the area. And I'd love if you would be interested in chatting more about it." And by chance, the journal, just obviously because it was tailored for her, they knew she was already interested in the topic. She'd written about it previously. She jumped on it straight away, literally within an hour, got an email back saying, "Absolutely, love to interview you." She got an interview on ABC. Next day, we pitched it into, that same afternoon, we pitched it into Townsville Bulletin as well. So she didn't even have, all she'd written was probably 200 words max on a bit about her story, why she's doing what she's doing and why it's been impossible to find staff. And she did a little bit of research on the gap in hairdressing, or employment challenges with hairdressing, and found probably, I think it was either data from ABS or IBIS. There's lots of different, research outlets out there. Found that, pitched it in, sent the email off, and next minute she's run on Townsville Bulletin and got interviews on ABC. So, and obviously, and it's just the start of the process. So those sorts of things are, and obviously then how you obviously maximize that as well is then sharing it on your socials. Did you see us featured on this? This is our biggest, this is why we're so excited about this, and making it, I guess, a mini campaign across all your channels too.
I'm glad you mentioned that. What are we doing with it? Because being featured is nice, but if you don't leverage it, it's also a bit of waste of time, because if you cannot rely on everyone in your network or who you want to get in front of that they are seeing it anyway. So leveraging it to repurpose, to share it.
Absolutely. It's great content. You can put it as an ad. Say with the Lula girls, they've now got ads running saying as featured in Harper's Bazaar, ABC, all of these publications. So it becomes content in its own right, because you've built that trust. You've had the I guess credibility, or built that authority through being featured in these publications. You use it for an ad as part of a secondary trust building process. So you might have an awareness ad, and then a secondary part of your funnel is an ad saying as featured in this. It's just another part of the funnel. But then obviously, social media content, organic content, your email marketing, and share it in your email marketing, pop it on your website, of your banner, of your homepage saying as featured in XYZ. It's all part of building up that reputation and building up your funnel. And it's great for SEO. So linking back to others, it's absolutely great for SEO.
Absolutely. Like in the trusted authority framework, we've got the credibility framework. So it's on, others, and on the go. And what you just mentioned is literally others. How can you tap into other people, platforms, communities who have got already credibility, and you piggyback off them? Because if you are good enough for them to feature you, you must be good enough for clients to work with you, and you are trustworthy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, a lot of executives, especially, they want to get out there, but at the same time, even just posting on LinkedIn is often a challenge. But what if I get a bad comment or a negative feedback? And imposter syndrome is real. PR is another level of exposure. Have you ever had this experience before And or how do you deal with that? Where you say, we've
Yeah.
got this great story, but rather not.
Yeah.
Let's not. What are we doing with these people?
Oh, I can tell you, as someone who's worked in 15 years of PR, I still feel I'm not worthy of being featured or commenting on certain topics, which I know I would know how to answer, but I still feel that like, oh, what if I say something wrong? Or what if that person's more experienced? I know that they know that better than I do. But at the end of the day, if the first to the story gets the coverage, it's part of building that up. And at the end of the day, everyone's got their own story, their own experience. Everybody's got something to share. So no matter what it is, it's, if you are willing to share that little bit of knowledge, or that little bit of, experience that you're happy to, that might connect with just one person, I think that's the biggest thing to overcome any sort of imposter syndrome feels, or just that you're not worthy, which everybody is. Absolutely everyone is entitled to it. If you don't, and if you get a no, what's the problem with that? That's the end of the day. No is just, next step to another yes. So you'll move on, find somebody else, or try again in a few months. It's part of that. What I also think about PR is it's part of building your relationships with media. So I rarely like to reach out cold to a journalist. Like you've got, having said that, those other examples, they were completely cold, as in they didn't know this person, but they had done their research. They knew that the content was right for that journalist. But yeah, if you do get a no, just use that as a next step to write something, or write back to them and say, oh, no worries. If you ever after another story or anything, please, I'd love to know if I could have any feedback on what might work for you. They may have no time, and that's totally fine, but it doesn't hurt to ask and to start building up that relationship. Start following journalists or key people of influence, whether it's a government person or, having that, organizing a meeting with someone in a high profile position, like the head of tourism. When I first launched my business, I arranged a meeting with the head of Brisbane marketing just by myself, and I had no experience. I felt completely like, what am I doing? This is, ridiculous for me as a freelancer back then, to just ask for a meeting with I'm pretty sure it was like the head of tourism for Brisbane marketing. But Mark Olsen, I remember you actually did that talk with him and I just asked him if he wanted to have coffee, and he did, and he was so generous with his time. And it doesn't hurt to ask. It's just part of the process. It's part of building your relationships, and you never know what it leads to. So yeah, just have a go. As Nike says, just do it.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned also before, and we briefly touched on it, that PR can have a negative rep also. And often also, especially senior executives are, again, quite worried that when they give a media statement that it backfires, or that PR only takes a snippet and it puts them into the bad position. So what's your take on the proactive versus the reactive PR and media management and relations?
Yeah, so I've definitely worked on a lot of crises in my life, for different types, from extreme, from a fire in a nursing home where we had to, work with 20 residents that were killed as a result of a nurse burning down the house. And that was, months and months of crisis management with media. And that's a very different process. And I would obviously recommend, if you are going through something like that, to outsource that to an agency, because it does take a lot of time and resources. And it's just, you do need the extra support during those times, even during the tougher times. So one other client that I worked with recently, they had a very bad, I guess they're a wedding venue, and they were, one of the security guards that they'd hired had stolen the wedding money from their, what do you call it? The wedding cash that you give people money for a wedding. And the security guard was actually the person responsible for that. And they, had subcontracted that out. But the bride, who happened to be a very well-known MMA fighter, so she can't, and her husband was too. They both went on a very literal attack, or figurative attack online, against the client, and contacted Channel 7 and ABC to talk about this story. And obviously it's an interesting story with the security guard hiring it. So in that sense, we worked together I suggested probably not doing an interview, just providing a very heartfelt written response from Lightspace, or from the client, about how to respond to such an issue and what they did as a result. So they'd worked with police, they'd worked with, did all the right things. And it's sharing as much as you can to do that, you're showing to do the right thing. But I would, in that sense, not put yourself forward for such things. So in a crisis, I would recommend working with someone who does know the ins and outs of media, because it can kind of snowball. So if you are ever involved in such, something like that, 100% work with someone who knows the media. In my case, I happen to know the journalist, so I called the journalist and said, "Can you let me know if this story is really," and giving that backgrounding information on the actual context of the story can be incredibly valuable as well. So done in the right way. But I guess if you are just worried about how a story might be twisted or that sort of thing, that is extremely rare. And I would, it's just not something to worry about. Like I think that on the whole, journalists are good people. They are real people at the end of the day. They've got a kind of a bad rap too, because they're after the more interesting news stories, but that's not what general, a business story is all about. They're after a good news story for the right sort of media that you're probably going to be working with. They're good people that want a great story that's heartfelt and connecting with people on a bigger level, or educational and informative, that's going to help small business owners or retail executives understand whatever it might be, seasonal trends, responding to an issue that's, a topical issue that's happening right now, or anything like that. So I just don't think you need to worry that your story is going to be somehow twisted or come out the wrong way. It's more if a crisis happens that I would say it's time to work with an expert.
Absolutely. I think same with social media. Like, people are often so worried that they get a negative feedback or they get slammed on social media, but it hardly happens. And I think it's also, I've worked with a few companies who had to rebuild their relationships with the external world because a couple of their senior leaders, they did the wrong thing, fired people on the spot and so forth. And Queensland is quite a small place, so you cannot do that. And simply being proactive, and as you said, also building relationship with the media. So when something negative happens, they're more likely to support you through that rather than slam you also when you go in, receivership or whatever it might be.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's been excellent.
Yeah.
Now, Katie, where can everyone find you, connect with you, learn more about you, and how you can help everyone?
Awesome. Yes. So I'd love if you can follow us on Croft PR on Instagram and on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well at Katie Martel. Sorry, my maiden name is Croft. And LinkedIn, Facebook, we're all over there. But obviously our website has all of those details. So it's croftpr.com, and come over there and have a visit. There's lots of content and information. You can learn more about PR, some of the templates that we sell as well on the shop. We do have lots for how to write a contributed piece. If you are looking to know how to write something for media, there is templates sitting there ready to go for you as well. And I would absolutely love to hear from you. So please let me know it, and also how you go with media. So if you do have a go and have a great crack at getting your story out, which I highly, highly recommend. Remember, media are always looking for stories. So the first to the story, the better. Have a crack and do let me know how you go.
Excellent. So no more excuses to not go out there, to not get the exposure, and with that, the impact that you can make. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Petra.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Bye.